in over 100 countries now. So we've been very, very successful with this. But tonight we're going to focus specifically in the field of regenerative science, and this has been a 10-year journey for us. Now, there are many different biological models for regeneration, and one of them is a planaria. This is a very simple organism. It's a flatworm, and you may remember this from high school, where you take these worms, you cut off their heads, and in 17 days, they will grow a new head. How many of you are fans of Wolverine?
Yay!
I know. How many women here are a fan of Hugh Jackman? More hands for that. Okay. So if you're a fan of that genre, then you know Wolverine has the mutant power, the mutant ability to get injured, and he heals rather instantly. So he pretty much can't be killed, and he gets some pretty horrific injuries in the movies. But in real life example, we have things like planaria, hydractinia, salamanders, tadpoles that have incredible regenerative capacity. As a matter of fact, the tardigrade, which is a microscopic organism, I don't know if anyone has actually ever figured out a way to really kill these organisms yet. You can put them up in space, dehydrate them, add water, and they come back to life.
Wow.
So understandably, scientists, they want to know, how does this all work, and can this be applied to human beings? And imagine where things could be 10, 20, 30 years from now if someone was in an accident, they lost a vital organ, they lost a limb, and they could regenerate that limb. That is absolutely where science is going. It is no longer science fiction, by the way. This is being done in the lab today. So this is one example, and planaria are something that we study in our laboratory. And of course, there's the human being, very, very limited regenerative capacity. And the bad news is that as we age, of course, our regenerative capabilities continue to decline. So we start out with a reasonable degree of being able to heal from injury. Of course, there's some things that we can't heal from. And but as we age, it gets worse. So actually, by the time you're over the age of 60, if you're aging, quote unquote, normally, your ability to repair and regenerate has already declined by over 60%. So that's not a good outcome. So we want to understand what exactly is going on here, and can we apply information that we learn from other organisms. This would be called biomimetics. We want to mimic what other organisms do, apply it to human beings, and greatly enhance our own ability to regenerate and repair. And as it turns out, that has a lot to do with aging. As a matter of fact, the planaria is immortal because of its regenerative capacity. The only way that you can really kill planaria is if you don't feed it or if it's killed by a predator. Other than that, you give it adequate food, water, shelter, they live forever. So how can we have a lot to learn about that. So what we're going to talk about tonight with X39 is this concept of activating the stem cells that are already in our body so we can get better healing ability. Talk about what that is. Now, over the past 10 years, it took me, by the way, 11 years to get my first patent. I can't even begin to tell you how frustrating that was. Because many patents go through in 18 months, 2 to 3 years, 11 years, and then my second patent took 18 months. And today, I have over 70 patents just in the field of regenerative medicine. So we have spent millions of dollars in research here in San Diego and also at our office in Ireland, studying and investigating how to dramatically enhance human healing. And these are all energy-based techniques. So about 6-7 years ago, we were very fortunate because we do have an office in Ireland to develop a working relationship with NUIG, and get funding from the Irish government. And the proposal that we made to Dr. Tim O'Brien, who runs Remedy, was we have a technology using energy that can dramatically improve the way stem cells work and ultimately improve the way organisms will heal. So we got funded to investigate that. Now, this is one of the technologies that I invented, that we've patented, and this is a novel form of electromagnetic field therapy. And what we discovered through many years of research is that this will have the ability to transfer energy from the device directly into the cell, and it charges up the cells like you would charge up a battery. And by the way, that's one of the ways that you can look at aging. It's a very, very good model for aging, is that as we age, the ability of our cells to produce energy declines. This is called mitochondrial dysfunction. And David Sinclair at Harvard University, he has received over $1 billion in funding looking at ways to increase mitochondrial energy, because what happens is that as you charge up the cell with energy, the genes in the cell change and revert from an old state to a young, healthy state. So the path that David Sinclair is taking at Harvard is to develop drugs to do this. The path we've taken is to do it with energy. But this device, it works very, very well. And this is one of the many experiments that we've done. This is what would be called the standard rabbit model, because we were looking at seeing if we could apply this technology to a disease where there currently is no cure. And the one that we chose was neuropathy, both idiopathic and diabetic neuropathy, as well as diabetic ulcerations. This affects roughly 430 million people globally. So this is an epidemic, and it's also getting worse. Diabetes is on the rise. And so when someone has diabetes, they're at risk for nerve damage that's caused from high blood sugar levels. And as the disease progresses, people can end up with ulcerations. Ulceration is an open wound, and about 15 to 25% of that population require amputation. So this is some pretty serious stuff. And so what we did was we induced diabetes in these rabbits. This is the proper research method. They develop an ulceration on their ear. You close the ear to protect it from the rabbit scratching. And then you have a control group and treatment groups, and you see if you can do anything to alter the way the rabbits will heal. So that's what we did. And this is what the ulceration looks like. I have some pictures, by the way, later. You see what it looks like in a human being on a foot. It's pretty gross, so I'm going to warn you. I'm glad you had your food and wine earlier. Now here's what happened is we had a control group and we had different treatment groups. In this one experiment, we showed that applying the electromagnetic field could increase the rate of healing by around 20 to 40%, depending on the parameters, which is pretty good. Interestingly, and this was kind of the aha moment here, was that when we took a gel of stem cells, they're called, for those of you that are scientists or doctors here, these would be mesenchymal stem cells in a collagen gel. When the MSC stem cells, when they're applied to the ear, they healed that ulceration at exactly the same rate as when electromagnetism was applied. Wow. So what this experiment told us was that you do not need to apply stem cells to an injury. You don't need to inject stem cells into the body. You can use energy to alter the way stem cells work. And we went back and we were applying this to our humble planaria. And in the stem cell world, by the way, we have just formed a working agreement with one of the top stem cell scientists in the United States. We had invited him into our laboratory to witness something I'm going to tell you about in just 1 minute. But in the stem cell community, they know if you cut off the head of the planaria, it will regenerate in 17 days. And because the genome of the planaria is well understood, how can we get the planaria to heal in 15 days? Right? That's the goal, because if we could do that, then that could conceivably be applied to human beings, and we might get a 10 or 15% improvement in the way human beings heal. We applied the technology that I just showed you, and we did it in 8 days.
Wow.
So we cut the time in half on our very first try. Now, we kept working and developing the technology, and eventually we were able to cut off the head of the planaria and close the wound in under 15 minutes.
Whoa.
And when the stem cell scientist saw this, he wanted to work with us because no one else is even close. We ended up regenerating the head of the planaria. Our most successful experiment, we regenerated an entire head in only 16 and a half hours.
Whoa.
That actually, to give you something to think about, that actually exceeds the ability of the planaria to form new proteins. So it raises some very interesting questions. How did it happen? But that's not important tonight. What's important is we're not worms. Right? We want to know what can we do today, right? All of this is very, very interesting, but we don't want to wait 10 or 20 years. What can we do today? So here's a way to understand this. Stem cells are going to age with the rest of the body. And at some point, it's about age 75, the cells in the body stop dividing. This is called the Hayflick limit. Now, if you're already 75 or in your 70s or older, don't worry, there's still hope, okay? There is light at the end of the tunnel here. Stem cells, they're also going to slow down. This is referred to as the motility rate, but the ability of stem cells to get to an injury and release growth factors and do their job, that diminishes with age. And eventually there's no more stem cells. Okay, so these are all the problems that we want to define and deal with. So what do we do with X39? The first thing is stem cells have to be affordable. Right now, if you wanted to get an injection of stem cells, which by the way, FDA is starting to actively close down clinics for a number of reasons, but the minimum fee would be thousands of dollars. In Europe, if you wanted an injection of umbilical cord stem cells, you could pay as much as $30,000 for a single injection. Other parts of the world, maybe about $10,000, but it's not cheap. We want to make this also safe. Getting injections doesn't always work, and it can have negative consequences. So the ideal outcome would be to have young, healthy stem cells in the body and make it affordable and make it safe and make it available everywhere, right? Everyone should have access to this. Okay, so how does this technology work? We've referred to this as light therapy. Let's see if we can go to this video and you can get a better explanation about what we're going to talk about. So let's go to the video.
Light, an ancient form of energy that goes back to the dawn of time. For us, it all begins with the sun, the source of light and life for our entire solar system. Even Einstein concluded that everything we're made of contains light. All life originates with the sun through photosynthesis. Plants and vegetation collect the light, and all living creatures emit light. Humans actually emit infrared light, which can be seen with night vision devices. We've known for centuries that light has many effects on the body. LifeWave's phototherapy patches use light to stimulate the body's natural healing systems, providing specific health benefits. Here's how the technology works. First, a patch is applied to specific points on the body. Where the patch covers the skin, infrared light emitted from the body is reflected back into the tissue. This stimulates the skin, which in turn stimulates specific regions of the brain. The brain then taps into the body's own natural flow of energy and the ability to heal itself. Let's take a look at why this is important on a cellular level. For example, a number of our patch products help counteract free radicals, oxygen molecules that damage cell proteins and contribute to visible signs of aging. When the body is stimulated through phototherapy to release its own antioxidants, these free radicals are neutralized naturally. LifeWave phototherapy patches promote an environment that enables the body to optimize its restorative powers and provide specific health benefits, all without the use of harmful drugs or chemicals, all helping you to stay healthy and young. To find out more, contact your distributor or visit lifewave.com. LifeWave. Live long. Live well.
Whoa. Amazing.
All right. Okay, is this all starting to make a little bit of sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, crap.
Totally.
Uh-oh. Where did I lose you? Did I lose you at My Name is David? Help me out here. Was it the wine? How much wine did you all drink? All right, let's see what we do here. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit. This is a little dry, I'm going to warn you in advance. We have over 80 clinical studies that we have done on our products over the years, since 2002. And our research work consists of standard blood, urine, and saliva testing. We do a lot of bioelectrical testing, heart rate variability, electromyography, surface electromyography. We look at the frequencies that go through the organs so we can see bioelectrical response in those tissues. So we do a variety of different tests to look at how is the chemistry of the body changing and how does this affect the way everything works. And this starts to give us a picture of what's happening and how this is going to benefit people. So I'm only going to show you just one of these clinical studies now, just to go over it briefly. But if you go to the science section of our website, you go to lifewave.com, go to the science section of the website, and you can pull up all the clinical studies you want to take a look at. So we also do self-assessments, by the way. And so what that means is clinically, these are things like visual analog scale, VAS testing. And so you simply ask someone, how do they feel? What's their pain level at? What's their mobility? What's their range of motion? You do this, and then when you do the other tests like blood work, you can kind of compare the two and say, oh, okay, this person says they have less pain and they're moving better, and now we know from our blood work that's because the inflammation has come down. So that kind of stuff. Why are we interested in stem cells, and what are stem cells? Well, again, a really simple way to think a bit about this is that you have these universal pluripotent stem cells. They begin to divide. They go into what's called a multipotent stem cell, which is more differentiated, and then that becomes a specialized cell. So eventually, or ultimately, everything starts with a universal cell and then becomes a liver cell, a heart cell, kidney cell, and so forth. So this is why we're interested in stem cells, because if we could put young, healthy stem cells into the body, then they would divide into young, healthy cells. So that's why we should be interested in this. And what kind of benefits do you get from activating the stem cells? Well, there are some very significant benefits. Many people will experience very rapid, very dramatic pain relief, will get reduced inflammation or management of inflammation with that. We can see improvements in sports performance. For those of you that are interested, reduction in lines and wrinkles. Right? I know there's not many people in California interested in that too. For those of you that might be, there it is. And there's also a phenomena called youth renewal, which we'll explore in a little bit. But it basically means that not only do we activate the stem cells, but the biochemical changes that occur in the cell reset about a third of the genes in the body to a younger, healthier state. And this is the secret of how the stem cells behave like younger, healthier cells. So there's a whole spectrum of benefits. Now, this was one of the first studies that we've done on X39. We've done many more since then. But this was one of our pilot studies. Some of the other work that we're doing, we haven't released yet because we're going to publish. But I want to do an overview of this one because it gives you kind of a good idea that when you use X39, there's an immediate effect. So we take baseline readings before people use X39. We measure to see, is there already changes showing up after 24 hours? And then what happens after a week? Other studies that we do go for 6 weeks, 3 months. But in this one study, we want to see, is there an immediate effect? And because this was a pilot study, this was done with 15 subjects, which is actually not a bad pilot. Many pilot studies are about 10 people or so. The follow-up study to this, by the way, was 45 people. And we're also looking at people over the age of 45. Now, we looked at different metabolic changes that would occur in the body. So what's going on when we're going to measure blood or urine? And this was one of the tests that we did for vitality and well-being. This was a self-assessment. And basically what happened is when people started using X39, they said they felt better, right? And so that's a good indication. It could still be a placebo effect. So that's why we want to do the other tests, so we can compare. But this was a discernible, statistically significant outcome. People use the product and they get a feeling of well-being. So that's a good start. Now, we also did tests on short and long-term memory, and we hit statistical significance on short-term memory by day 7. Now, this is very important, and it raises some very interesting questions, which is, when you activate the stem cells in the body, why in the world would the memory improve? There's a connection here, and we'll talk about it. Sleep quality. Very interestingly, we hit statistical significance. Most people start to see this change within the first 24 hours. By the first week, the majority of the population that use the product see an improvement in the quality of their sleep. And again, it begs the question, why, when you activate the stem cells, does the quality of sleep improve? Again, there's a good reason for it. Okay. We also did this urine testing. And by the way, Dr. Melinda Connor, who did this clinical study, had looked at over 1,000 clinical studies. Okay, whatever that is, got to stop. Yeah. And whoever it is, in another minute, they're going to come up on stage and sing a song or entertain us or something. Okay. All right. Dr. Melinda Connor, who did this clinical study and then also the follow-up, she had researched about 1,000, it's over that now, clinical studies in PubMed, and could not find any other peptide that produced this magnitude of beneficial changes in the body. And we wanted to know, when you use this product, what happens to the body's level of stress? How do you manage stress? What happens with sleep? Why are people reporting that they're getting an improvement in sleep? That's why we look at GABA levels. Histamine is an adrenal response, okay, and so forth. And these are amino acids, biochemicals, neurotransmitters that we measured and wanted to see what was the outcome. So, for example, when you look at something like tryptophan, tryptophan is going to indicate if your body is metabolizing tryptophan better, you're going to be converting that over into melatonin and sleeping better. Still doesn't answer the question, why does someone get better sleep and better memory? activating stem cells. Have you reached a level of suspense yet? Okay. Okay, these are kind of interesting. We measured the metabolism of these amino acids, glycine and alanine, because they are involved in metabolism of a biochemical called copper peptide, or GHK, glycine, histidine, lysine. But basically, the X39 is going to elevate production of copper peptide in the body. And copper peptide is a key regulating peptide of stem cell activity in the human body. And this was actually discovered about 50 years ago by Dr. Lauren Picard. It's a very, very interesting story. So one of the first tests that we did was to look at how are these amino acids being metabolized, because that would give an indication that copper peptide levels were changing, and we found a favorable outcome. We also wanted to look at what was happening with the stress response in the body, the inflammatory response, and we found, indeed, when you use X39, it manages inflammation. This is not surprising, by the way, because stem cells, it was discovered right in La Jolla at Sanford Burnham by Dr. Evan Snyder, that stem cells are attracted to inflammation. That's how they get to the injury site. So that inflammation actually is doing something for you. We also wanted to look at repair mechanisms. So these leucine is an mTOR activator, and what that simply means is leucine is a key amino acid, or properly a branch chain amino acid, that's found in muscle, and the amount of muscle that you can build is dependent on leucine. If we have any athletes or bodybuilders here, they already know that. But what's important is that leucine is involved in tissue repair, and X39 improves tissue repair. Tryptophan, again, is involved in sleep, and again, we saw statistically significant changes there. Okay, well, we measured GABA levels, and by the way, when drug companies are trying to develop a new sleep medication, Ambien would be a good example, they're trying to target GABA receptors, because GABA is going to regulate, ultimately, melatonin. Well, what happens with copper peptide is very interesting. About 80% of the repair that happens in the body happens in the evening. And so this is why it's important to get sleep. We're going to repair, we're going to regenerate. And as it turns out, GABA regulates another biochemical called BDNF. And BDNF regulates stem cell activity in the brain. So in other words, you use X39 to elevate copper peptide. Copper peptide regulates GABA. GABA regulates BDNF. Bet you didn't know you were coming in for a chemistry lesson tonight. I thought I was done with this in high school, right? But just to put it very, very simply, this is why people sleep better, and this is why memory improves, right? Even if you're over the age of 60, doesn't matter. You'll still get a favorable outcome. The stem cells go to work in the brain and start to make the chemistry of the brain work better. So those are some things that you could look forward to with using X39. Improved memory, okay, improved focus, improved alertness, and better sleep. Of course, all of this doesn't mean very much if the heart begins to fail. And what we found was that from reduction in stress that X39 produces, we get an improvement in the health of the heart. Also, one of the things that Dr. Connor, actually the thing that she was most excited about in this study is that we hit statistical significance on reduction in blood pressure. So people using X39 had a remarkable improvement in their cardiovascular health. Even just using X39 for 6 weeks resulted in a reversal of the age of the cardiovascular system by several months, and blood pressure. So we're seeing a repair phenomena occurring here. And this, by the way, was duplicated in 3 other studies. So even though this was a pilot study, 3 other studies duplicated this effect. So we know for sure that it's going on. 2 of those were double-blind, placebo-controlled. So very, very quickly, in summary, we see that in this study using X39, we demonstrated reduction in blood pressure, improvement in overall health of the heart, beneficial change and very significant changes in metabolism, key neurotransmitters that are involved in health improved, improvement in the quality of sleep, improvement in the quality of memory, feelings of overall health and vitality, management of the inflammatory process, and even improvement in the gut health, which leads to improvement in immune function. So that's a lot of benefits just from activating stem cells. So you can begin to get an idea of why this is so powerful. Now, in your regular daily life, what might be some things that you might see? Well, we're in California, so a lot of people are into sports and health. I used to live in Georgia, and I couldn't always say that. There's way too many barbecue houses that are there. But out here in California, of course, we see a lot of people exercising, wanting to be healthy. And when you exercise, it's a catabolic function. In other words, you're breaking down the body so you can rebuild it and make it stronger. And when you activate the stem cells, they're going to do a better job at repairing the body. So those of you that are exercising, you'll see better sports performance and better recovery using X39. I'm going to show you some pictures in just a moment, but this is really where the product excels. What stem cells are really known for today is their ability to accelerate healing of wounds. And X39 is no exception. So you're going to see some really, really interesting results with this. And then, of course, youth renewal. The consequence of making a stem cell younger and healthier is that the cell that it divides and turns into will be a younger, healthier cell. We are doing a clinical study today that will end in about 7 months, and it is a longevity study. We're doing this study with a neurosurgeon, and we are going to actually measure the percentage by which X39 reverses aging. We're not expecting, by the way, complete age reversal for this patch. You have to wait till the next patch before we do that.
Oh.
And I'm only half kidding. But yeah, this is going to reset about 1/3 of the human genome to a younger, healthier state. So it is legitimately partial age reversal. So people can expect a better quality of life. Now, X39 just came out in January. It's our newest product. But we're just celebrating this year our 15-year anniversary in business. And these are the products that we've had leading up to this that you might also be interested. So if you go to our website and you're checking this out, I'll just give you a very brief explanation what these other products are about. The first one that I invented and we marketed is Energy Enhancer. And at the time, I had a company called Advanced Applications Group in Dahlonega, Georgia. And myself and my business partners, we were developing products for the United States Navy through government contractors like General Dynamics Electric Boat and Newport News Shipbuilding. And basically, we were looking at ways to keep people alive longer. And one of the projects that I got invited to was designing survival equipment for a mini-sub, and the crew of the mini-sub were Navy SEALs. And so I wanted to look at this and see what kind of opportunity this might present. And I thought, well, going on missions, these guys use amphetamines, caffeine, and is there something else that we could do to improve their energy level without using drugs? And that's how this all started and came about. So basically, what the energy patches will do is stimulate the skin with light like all of our other products, and they will increase fat burning. And we get about twice as much energy from burning fat as we do from carbs, and so this results in an increase, a natural increase in energy in the cell. And we've done multiple clinical studies on that. Consistently, our top-selling products over the years have been Eon and LifeWave. And this is because they're immediately demonstratable. Both Eon and LifeWave, they work differently, but they both will reduce inflammation, and they will both assist with reduction in pain. LifeWave is specifically for pain relief. Eon is specifically for reduction in inflammation, and it also produces anti-aging effects as a consequence. But many of our members over the years, they have built very, very successful businesses simply demonstrating within about 2 or 3 minutes how you can reduce pain without any type of drugs. Carnosine, I would say, is a nutrient that many people haven't heard of that they should be using. And carnosine is an antioxidant. It is stored in your skeletal muscle, your heart, and your brain. And the immediate benefits that you get from using carnosine are going to include increase in muscle mass, increase in strength and stamina. You get better cardiac function, protection of the heart. And we even did a study with people over the age of 60 and showed that after 30 days of using our carnosine patch, they had significant improvements in their short and long-term memory, their focus, their processing speed. So carnosine is really a miracle nutrient. But longer-term use of carnosine has been shown in mammals to extend lifespan by 30 to 40%.
Whoa.
Now, that doesn't, when you do animal studies like mice and rats, that doesn't always translate into human beings. So that's a fair statement. But we do know from our own studies and other studies that are in the literature that the benefits of using carnosine short-term are quite significant. Another very, very popular product that we have is glutathione. And glutathione is the body's master antioxidant. What that means is that it's found everywhere, and even how long you live has been associated with your body's glutathione levels. What does glutathione do? Well, it's going to protect the cells from damage. It's going to protect your DNA from damage. It will, very importantly, latch onto heavy metals and other toxins and help pull them out of the body. So if you're drinking any other wine than the one that's served here tonight with those over 200 toxins, you better be using the glutathione patch. But yeah, very, very important that we detox regularly, and you do that with glutathione. Silent Nights was our very first product for helping to naturally elevate melatonin levels so you can get an improvement in the quality of sleep. Some of you may recognize the name Dr. Norm Shealy. He has several hundred studies that he has published. He's a very well-known medical doctor, the father of pain management, and he has done a number of clinical studies for LifeWave over the years, and one of the studies that he did was on our Silent Nights patch. And we showed that we could improve the quality of sleep and also the length of sleep with Silent Nights. And then finally, Alavita is part of our skincare system. And we took the approach with our skincare system that we wanted to not only protect the surface of the skin with natural compounds, but also improve the quality of the skin from the inside out. And so the Alavita patch, what it does is it reduces oxidative stress that would normally damage the skin. It also, when people use it in the evening, this also improves the quality of sleep. So if you try Alavita and you're having a problem sleeping, you may find out that you don't need Silent Nights, that it will improve your sleep quality. Okay. We're only going to show just a few. I'd like to get to some questions. I'll show a few testimonials here. We get hundreds and hundreds of testimonials in. Just go to our website and any of the product pages, and you can click on the testimonial tab and see what people are experiencing with our products. And if you go to our homepage and you want to learn more about X39, we have an entire booklet and story there. But let's take a look at some things here. We'll spend a lot of time looking at wound healing results. But this was a scar. It was, some of you may wonder, well, I have a scar or I have an injury, and, it's a few years old. Could the X39 heal that scar or that injury? The answer is yes. Here was a surgery that was done in 2017. X39 came out actually in July of 2018. And you can see in only 1 month, there was a dramatic reduction in the appearance of that scar.
Wow.
This was now where X39 was applied at the site of where the surgery was, which you don't have to do, by the way. You can put this patch pretty much anywhere. Behind the neck, below the belly button are two places that we recommend because that's where we put them in our studies. But if you want to put it on the foot where the injury is, in this case, you can do that. And here you can see what happened in just over a month. Very significant reduction in the appearance of that scar. This was a jellyfish sting. This happened to a woman who is a medical doctor from Denmark. She was vacationing in Spain, got stung by a jellyfish, and in 21 days she got a pretty dramatic reduction in the wound. Now, before we talked a little bit about the study that we did with rabbits, and there are many other studies that we did on diabetic ulcerations. But here is an example of someone that's suffering with a ulceration on top of the foot. And it's important to know that today there is no cure for an open wound like this. If you go to a hospital and you see a medical doctor who specializes in diabetes and diabetic ulcerations, the standard of care today is they will put a sponge into the wound to soak up all the stuff, and then they vacuum seal it. And they change the sponge and the bandage when it begins to smell bad.
Ugh.
That is how it is diagnosed and treated today. And of course, it's very easy for the wound to get infected, and then if it goes gangrene, you have to have an amputation. And so here you can see this was actually a month after using X39. We didn't get X39 until July. So this was just about 1 month that we got wound closure. So that's really unheard of. This is a little bit more difficult to see. We don't make medical claims, so I'm not going to name this condition. And by the way, even still, what we would say is we're not treating a disease, we're managing the symptoms. But here you can see after 7 days of using X39, very dramatic reduction in skin irritation. Now, I would definitely recommend that you take before-after pictures. Sometimes the changes will be subtle, sometimes you'll forget, what did I look like a month ago? Take pictures, and then you'll be able to see when the changes occur. So this was 2 months, by the way, of using X39. We got a very nice softening of these wrinkles. One of our biggest markets in the world now, fastest growing markets in the world for us are the United States and Japan. So we get a lot of testimonials coming in from Japan. I don't know why this person was interested in reducing wrinkles in their feet, but maybe that's a thing in Japan, I don't know. And here's another picture reducing wrinkles on the hands. This is also from Japan. Now, there are quite a few clinical studies. We don't make a claim, by the way, that when you use X39, you'll experience new hair growth, but it does happen to some people. There's a number of conditions that need to be met in order for it to happen. So occasionally, we will get in these testimonials, but we don't have any clinical studies or documentation on this. But it is one of the effects in the literature on activating stem cells is hair growth. Now, this is from one of our distributors. It's a woman in France, and her son had a job interview, and he got into this accident a few days before the job interview, so she immediately applied X39, and you can see that the injury healed very, very quickly. Almost gone within a period of about 5 days. Now, this one is really interesting because this injury was 18 years old. So again, people wonder, well, I've had this condition for 5 years, 10 years. Does activating stem cells do anything? This was a motorcycle injury, and the circulation to the thumb was impaired. So we could speculate that there was damage to the possibly the peripheral nerves, or maybe the peripheral circulation. And after just over 3 months of using X39, we can see that the thumb has returned to a normal color, and also the nail has grown back. Here's a picture side by side. Okay, this is the final testimonial. I saved the best for last, and it took me months before I had to beg this woman to give me this testimonial. She's very shy. She doesn't want her face out on the internet, so you won't find this on our website, although she did agree to let us put it on our social media. But she lives in Denmark. She's 93. She was suffering with a number of medical conditions that we can't name, and her daughter is a distributor for LifeWave. So when X39 came out, she started patching her mom, and this is what happened after 2 months of using X39.
Whoa.
I'll put those pictures next to one another. I just, this past week actually, I got an update from her, and she's doing really, really well. Very happy, very healthy, and excited how her life has changed. Still no permission to use it on our website, though. I don't get it. So, anyway. Okay, let's see. So, Brad, how are we going to facilitate questions here?
So, this is always a highlight of David's talks, to do a Q&A. So we'll do about 10-15 minutes. First, I just want to say it's a complete honor to be hosting you here in Encinitas, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you. Happy to be here.
And for those who don't know me, my name is Brad Hunsaker, and I own Vitality Wellness Center here in Encinitas. And it was about 10 weeks ago that Michelle introduced me to the X39 and the patches. And when people come into my center, my commitment is always to be able to offer the best of wellness technologies. And I will tell you, in the short 10 weeks I've been using these patches have jumped to #1 on the list for the focus of my center. Because I know anybody that comes in, we can help them with one of the patches or more than one sometimes, and sometimes instantly. And anyone that's used the Eon and the LifeWave know exactly what I mean. As a matter of fact, we have a show of hands how many people have seen instant pain relief with Eon and LifeWave. A lot of people. And the rest of you guys are here for the first time. So for the Q&A, we'd like to ask people to make sure their question is relevant or beneficial to the crowd. That would be helpful since we have a limited time. And otherwise, you can ask, certainly the person who brought you here or one of us with a name tag would be happy to help. Did the microphone just get turned on? Okay, who would like to ask a question?
Brad, I'll keep this mic on the other side so we can get it to him faster.
All right.
You choose the people. Oh, this guy?
Sure.
All right.
Hi, I'm Ron. Two quick questions. The first one's really just a yes or no. Is the in the video the coil? Is that basically the same thing as PEMF?
So it is in the family of PEMF devices, but there's other things that it will do that PEMF devices will not. But it would be in that category.
So do you sell that product?
Not today,
Not today.
but in the future.
Secondly, a question more substantial. So I don't understand what's the difference physically between the patches. Why does one patch stimulate glutathione, the other patch stimulates stem cells? What's happening there?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's going to be a lot of things like that that we didn't have time to get into tonight. But basically, the way the patches work is that there are organic crystals that we manufacture that go into the product. This is not referring to crystals as a new age thing, but more in the idea of optoelectronics. And we use these crystals to reflect very specific wavelengths of light. And this is the basis for photobiomodulation, is that different wavelengths of light will trigger different biochemical changes in the cell. For those of you that are interested, the carrier or the trigger for light in the cell is cytochrome C oxidase. And this was discovered in Russia, and this is what led to these thousands of clinical studies being conducted, because now what that meant was you could put monochromatic or laser light onto the cell and actually see where the changes were taking place and why. And this happens, by the way, in the mitochondria. So in other words, we can link very distinct biochemical changes to specific wavelengths of light. And this is how the cells work in the first place. Fritz Popp discovered that this was what's called biophotons. But in any case, the patches will each reflect different wavelengths of light for a different biochemical outcome.
Is it different crystals or?
Yes.
So each patch has a different?
Yeah, each patch has a different makeup, different set of crystals. And we substantiate this, by the way, with a device called an FTIR, Fourier Transform Infrared, and this will show a spectra of light reflectance.
Okay, please raise your hand if you have a question. I know we have one right here.
So is this the equivalent of like triggering precursors to the ion cell?
So the precursors, of course, to glutathione would be, glutathione is a tripeptide, and the rate-limiting amino acid is cysteine. So we're not putting those amino acids into the body. It's more like we're saying, okay, we're telling the body, take those amino acids and sequence them into glutathione. So in that specific case. Now, in the case of Eon, I think this would answer your question. It's a little bit different. The Eon patch is designed to elevate production of a liver peptide, but then that peptide causes a cascade of different biochemical reactions in the body, and this will trigger what's known as the primitive immune system. So while the peptide that Eon elevates is not an antioxidant, it will trigger antioxidant activity in the cell, specifically SOD.
Yes, I had a question about the X39. You mentioned that it lowered blood pressure. Does that mean it's dangerous if you have low blood pressure, or does it regulate blood pressure?
It regulates blood pressure. Also, it will regulate inflammation. This was discovered, there was a Nobel Prize, actually, that was associated with this, and this has to do with nitric oxide. So the body, nitric oxide is a gas, it's a vasodilator, and it's produced naturally in the body all the time. The precursor amino acid is L-arginine, and when you elevate L-arginine production in the body, either through, it's manufactured in the body, citrulline, for example, is a precursor to arginine, and then that will trigger nitric oxide production. And nitric oxide is synthesized and metabolized very, very quickly, so it's highly transient. But what it will do is dilate the blood vessels. So the body self-regulates. It's a positive and negative feedback loop. And so the body is always looking at forming homeostasis and balance. It would be the same with hormone production. So for example, testosterone is an excellent example, where there will be a trigger in the pituitary to release luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone causes an increase in testosterone in the testicles in men. And then once the testosterone levels go up, there's a feedback loop that turns off luteinizing hormone, and then the half-life of testosterone will have it slowly decay in the body over time. So what this means, this is all how the body self-regulates. So when we look at blood pressure, it's the same thing. If you have low blood pressure, it's not going to drive the blood pressure lower. Same thing with inflammation. When we talk about EON and it managing inflammation, that's a very good way to describe it. We need inflammation to tear down old damaged cells to make room for healthy tissue. So some of you will use X39, you'll have an injury, and the first 3 days, you may get an increase in your pain. That's a really good thing. Won't feel like it, but it's a really good thing, because your body is spiking production of inflammation to tear down these old cells that are in the injury to make way for new healthy tissue.
We have a question over here.
Excuse me, over here on your left.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I have two questions, if you don't mind. But one is, you mentioned blood pressure, but what is the effect regarding like plaque and cholesterol in your body? Number one. And you mentioned about some possible hair growth, but what is the effect on gray hair? I've been really trying to get gray hair.
Oh, okay. So plaque and gray hair and cholesterol. Okay. You know, first, the way that I would, one thing that's kind of, I don't want to preach here, but one thing that's really a crime is that there were natural remedies for arterial plaque that were discovered all the way back in the late 1920s and early 1930s. This started with Royal Lee at Standard Process, and then later, even more recent times now, extracts of pomegranate have been found to remove arterial plaque. There was a study that I looked at where pomegranate extract, when taken for 6 to 9 months, could, when people were candidates for bypass surgery, their arteries would be completely clean. So there are natural products that people can take today. Pomegranate extract is one, buckwheat seed extract is another. They'll completely remove arterial plaque. Cholesterol is a whole separate subject, because there have definitely been studies that have been done that show that there is no link between high cholesterol levels and cardiovascular disease. It is the LDL levels that are really the issue, and the particle size. So if you have elevated levels of LDL and you have elevated levels of very small pieces of LDL, this is the problem, because they act like razors when they go through the body, and they do damage to the arteries. So so I would not necessarily use patches to lower or manage cholesterol, but I would use them. I would use a patch like X39 or EON to manage the inflammation, and then I would manage cholesterol and plaque through diet and supplements. Now, gray hair is a different matter. It's interesting because copper peptide, actually, which is what X39 elevates, is linked to hair color. And this all has to do with serum copper levels. So there are a number of nutrients that you could get in your diet or even supplement with, and one of them would be copper. So it's been known for many years that wheatgrass will, over a period of many months, turn gray hair back to a dark color again, and it's the chlorophyllin, which is the copper-carrying compound, that does it. So in other words, if you take a copper supplement, like the standard dose would be 2.5 milligrams of something like a copper glycinate, over time this will help reverse gray hair. Plus the copper is used to form copper peptide, which activates stem cells.
Okay, we're going to take just one more question, and then we have to let David go. We said we'd let him get out of here by 8:30. He's got another appointment. And then after this last question, we'll have Michelle come up on stage and just spend 2 or 3 more minutes to close things out for us. So here's the last question.
So excited and need it. So I've been on the X39 for a week and a half now. I can walk. I was limping with arthritis so bad in my hip and my knee. I went for an x-ray. They're like, oh, you can't fix that. Here's meds. I'm walking. I can't believe it. Didn't expect it. So I'm sharing this with everybody. And the first question out of their mouth is, what do I do because I'm on medication, let's say for a psychological thing, maybe bipolar, or I have a condition already that I'm on medicine for heart, whatever. What would they do? Would they peter off as they're feeling good things come around and they're feeling better? Would they work with a doctor? Like, how would that work? That's the number one question.
Yeah, so they should work with a healthcare practitioner. I personally really like medical doctors that are clinical nutritionists because they'll use all of the modern medical diagnostics, but they're going to blend this with nutritional therapies, beneficial changes in lifestyle. But there's other therapists, of course, that are very, very good. But I would work with a therapist when any type of medication would be involved. And also, as a company, we can't make any claims that you can go off medication when using our products. So with any of our products, what we're essentially doing is restoring different peptides in the body to natural, youthful levels. So in the case of X39, your copper peptide levels were up here. I don't know how old you are, so let's say that you're over the age of 20, okay? So when you were 20, your copper peptide levels were here, but as you age, your copper peptide levels go down. So eventually when people reach over the age of 60, the copper peptide levels are down more than 60%. All we're doing is we're restoring those copper peptide levels back to a youthful state. And so it is a normal, healthy condition. So that means there's no drug interaction.
I get that.
Yeah.
But like when I'm explaining to my 83-year-old mother that, you know, you may not be on diabetes medication anymore, or, you know, like, oh, but how would that work? Oh, I don't know, whatever, you know, how do you deal with all that? Like,
so, yeah, ultimately what we have to, the legal position that we have to take is a person has to work with a doctor, and also an individual has to make their own decision. So I have a good friend, and for 25 years, he has been a type 2 diabetic. After the first month of using X39, his blood sugar went from being over 200 every day to now it's 100 or less. After 5 months on X39, his A1C level is now normal, and he's lost about 30 pounds. So he made the decision to go off of his medication, and he's off of all of his medication at this point. So ultimately, it's up to the individual, and hopefully individuals find doctors that are sympathetic and open-minded to what they're seeing and won't be so skeptical. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please, let's thank David for his